Hi, hello, and welcome back to or welcome to Ever So. This will be a reading of an eighth part of With a Card Up His Sleeve, What Could He Achieve? By The Earth, the Wind, the Flame. Chapter 15 POV Jason Todd The Leader The Dealer. The silence in the Batcave was wrong. It wasn't the usual low hum of bad computer TM, the clatter of gear falling on the stone floors, or the distant thud of sparring. It was a human shout, heavy and suffocating, in the way that clawed at his throat. Patrol was supposed to have started an hour ago. Batman never fucking showed up. Alfred had tried to reassure them. He said that Batman was taking a day off. But come on, Batman, take a day off. He was sure he could count on one finger the number of times Batman had taken a day off, and that was when Bane had broken his back. Alfred hadn't even tried. It was obvious that something was wrong. Alfred's stern British voice was thin and strained when he told everyone in the cave, Master Bruce has retired for the evening. Robin numero 5, who was perched on a gargoyle like a little bird with ruffled feathers, scoffed. He never retires, Pennyworth, not when he's supposed to, and he would never in such a precarious climate. He's been indisposed. Barbie's voice cut in over the cave speaker, a tight tremor in her usual unflappable tone. He's in the West Wing study, and, well, she cut herself off. He's, let's say, unreachable. Jason felt a cold knot tighten in his gut. Unreachable. That could mean a multitude of things. And indisposed. Those could be fine normally. Hell, he was usually indisposed and unreachable. But Bruce? The man had more trackers that should have been legally possible. He was connected. Always. Not always. A traitorous part of his brain whispered. He was unreachable. No one knew in Ethiopia, in a warehouse. He was alone, choking on his own blood. Bruce was an immovable object, a relentless force. Batman was unyielding in the face of anything and everything. They all knew that Bruce had gone out to track the dealer or some shit, but now, for him to have vanished, the dealer must have done something. Dick held the Brat and Blondie back in the cave, and instead left him to go and find the Dark Knight in the manor. And well, find him Jason did. Jason hadn't been up in the manor a lot since he died, but he still knew the place like the back of his hand. He was drawn to a West Wing study, his favorite one, and what was usually steeped in the scent of an old money and extinct wood, it now reeked of something else. Whiskey. Heavy, clawing, and unmistakable. Fucking hell. How did he know that Bruce had spent some time here after he died, but drinking? Bruce didn't drink alcohol, even at fancy-ass galas, where holding a glass of champagne was a part of the appearances. He was always going on and on about being compromised. What the fuck was happening? A familiar, deep sense of dread pulled in his gut. Jason had begrudgingly admitted, although never in front of Dick, that he was not the best at detective work. Instead, he preferred to let his fists do talking. And yet, someone Somehow, he found Bruce in the maze that was home, Wayne Manor. Bruce was slumped in a high-backed chair, the kind designed for his particular brand of brooding, and definitely not sleep. His cowl was off, discarded on the floor. The faint moonlight from the window caught the sheen of sweat on his brow. The unnerving slackness of a jar, empty glass, and 194-year-old whiskey littered the small table beside him, glinting accusatory. Jane stared, a tremor starting deep in his bones, vibrating with a rage so potent it felt like the Lazarus pit was bubbling beneath his skin. Drunk, Bruce Wayne, the pinnacle of self-control, the man who had faces down gods and monsters without a flicker of compromise, was drunk. And not just tipsy, he was lost in it, as a rift in a sea of amber liquid, seeking oblivion from what? Some harsh truth? A memory slapped into him of Willis Todd and crouching in corners of a room. The man whose silhouette in the doorway had meant another night of shouted obscenities, of fists connected with bone, of the clawing, inescapable smell of cheap booze. The man who had spent every meager cent on bottles while Jason and Catherine starved. The man who had made Jason understand that at the base level, alcohol wasn't a comfort. It was a coward's way of running from problems. And Bruce, the man who had pulled him from that hell, the man who had embodied everything Wills wasn't. Discipline, control, unwavering presence, was now doing this. Because some kid, some random fucking child, had said that he didn't need the big bad's help to bandage his scraped knees. Fucking coward. The pit stared, the edges of his vision tinged with green, and suddenly he could see it. A shattered glass, a shard in his hand, stabbing it over and over into Bruce's chest. He had been replaced, blood flowing out in streams from Bruce's chest. Would he beg for mercy? Stop. As abruptly as the wave came, it vanished, and all Jason was left was a sense of nausea and bile rising in his throat as he stared at Bruce's limp form. The pit rose again and again and again, demanding a target, demanding blood. The world outside the study narrowed, compromising until all he could see was his trembling hands, the empty glass, the stark white papers on the desk that he could so easily stain with blood. He slammed his helmet on. The visor clicked down, obscuring the sight of Bruce. It didn't block the images in his mind, though. "I'm out," he snarled. His voice distorted through the voice modulator, making it sound more machine than man. He didn't wait for a response from the others, whose frantic voices he could vaguely hear through the comms. He didn't care. He launched himself on the window and he ran, the roar of his motorcycle a soothe to the pit screaming in his head. Gotham was waiting. Gotham always had a target. The pit demanded action. The rage had to go somewhere. It didn't care for nuisances, for complexities of Bruce's trauma, or the psychological warfare waged by death. It just wanted release. It found it eventually in the grimy depths of a flophouse in Crime Alley. A rapist known to prey on runaways. Perfect. The fight was a blur. It was sloppy. He didn't use any weapons, just his fist bearing down again and again, fluid by a green haze that made everything so clear. It was a defense mechanism, one he was trying so hard to tamp down, too much, too many feelings, and the pit kicked in. Anger was easy, anger was safe. It ate up everything else inside of him, and it felt good. The first month out of the pit, he's been feral. He did love it. He would run from his death, from the memories of Joker Craw while calming down, memories of his family, and feel nothing. Eventually, Talia had forced some control into him. Still, he lost time when the pit comes calling. He's been better about it. It had only been a few hours since he went from the manor. Abruptly, he realized the man still beneath him was alive. God, what had he done? The man's face was mutilated beyond any repair, and knife wounds littered his body. He'd been castrated, and yet he was alive. Jason couldn't find any remorse in him, especially when he realized that his helmet was gone. That was okay. It would detonate wherever he left it, even when someone tried to pick it up. He needed to go. A final, definite crack of the neck. Done. It took him a day, full 24 hours, to burn off the wars of the pit-infused rage, to regain enough control to think about the constant hum of violence in his ears. Like father, like son, wasn't it? He had run too. He was gonna pretend he didn't think that. He missed Bruce's explanation, his apology, whatever it was. He didn't fucking care. He knew he overreacted, that his anger was as much a reflection of his own demons as it was a response to Bruce's weakness. But knowing didn't make it better. He heard about Bruce's sudden decision to storm the casino. A direct plan. A reckless plan. Bruce was pissed off and hurt, lashing out. Jason understood being angry at the little shit. It was practically a rite of passage. But Bruce being hurt so viscerally and responding the same way, it felt dangerous. The second night after Bruce had tracked the kid down and lost his composure, Jason was back on patrol, not on official bad channels, but his own, monitoring Crime Alley. He moved along alley and watched people nod at him, trust him enough to carry justice, and that made something rise in his chest. Did Layla know what crime he committed yesterday? Did she know the true monster that lurked beneath the surface? Would little Miss Susie trust him if she knew all the blood his hands held? If not, he'll make them all understand. No, the green pulse around his vision then vanished. Fucking hell. He continued walking. He didn't know what else to do. The familiar wave of his guns a comfort. Then he saw him. A flicker of movement. A pale, lean figure slipping in the shadowed doorway near an abandoned soup kitchen. It was quick, almost imperceptible. A flash of dark hair, a subtle grace in his movements. Soteria. Maybe. He glanced around. Suddenly he was alone in the alley. The people that had seemed so judging and suffocating and somehow vanished in the span of a second. Was he hallucinating shit again? He could have given chase. He could have alerted Oracle. Barbie had probably already hacked into his comms. He could have had Bruce descend, demanding answers, and maybe fight. But something held him back. Maybe it was the lingering residue of the Pitfield fury making him too tired to engage. Maybe it was the surprising peace he sometimes felt in knowing there was another person looking out for the kids in the alley. He watched the doorway for another long moment, the figure gone, swallowed by the darkness. Jason sighed. His hands reached up to pinch the bridge of his nose where it collided with his helmet. He let Soteria, or whatever vision he was having, go. He blew out under breath. On some days when the pit was roaring and he was nothing but a cold-blooded killer and a force of vengeance for the vulnerable, he hated Bruce. He hated weakness. The rigidly the moral code that seemed to invite suffering. But on the other days like this, when the rage was a low thrum and the air felt cold against his skin, he was still Bruce's son. That was the only respite he allowed himself, the simple, undeniable fact of connection. He knew Bruce was wrong, was fundamentally, tragically flawed in his approach to Gotham's rot. But he was still Bruce's son. And that meant something. Everything. The thought lingered. He knew Bruce was wrong. But what if the kid was wrong too? What if that cold, precise ruthlessness, that willingness to end lives was just another flavor of Gotham's poison? It wasn't black and white. Ethics and morality rarely were. Before he died, he did practice in more than one debate about it. God, that little kid. He deserved so much better than 4 shitty parents. Memories rose up. A fist fight between the teacher and the principal in kindergarten, a police raid on his apartment in 2nd grade, and then of Catherine death, and then the streets. Of another time when he was just another street kid, starving and cold, scoundering for scraps in Crime Alley. There had been a ghost story then. A pale boy, impossibly thin, who moved like smoke. Jason had seen him once, a fleeting glimpse in the periphery, a small, quick shadow leaving a package of day-old bread near a shivering group of kids. He dismissed it then, as a creation of his hunger-addled brain, just another street legend. Then, after he died, after the pit, after he risen and clawed his way back to a Gotham that had moved on without him, he heard the new whispers from the Crime Alley citizens, the ones who trusted him, the ones who didn't know he's been dead for years. They spoke of a boy, quick at cards, clever and sly, who lived near a dumpster but shared his improbable winnings and his cards fruit with the Crime Alley kids, and no one else. He was smart and understanding. He connected people, fixed problems. He was a shadow, but a benevolent one. And now there was a boy turning into a young man. 16, if Bruce's estimates were to be believed. But Jason suspected that he was younger, far too young for the weight he carried. Jason has been 13, who handed out cartons of hot food who left bundles of cash, who had connections strong enough to get allocates out of impossible situations, who was a high-stakes casino dealer, and who somehow still cared, who had grown up to care despite everything Gotham had probably thrown at him. Jason stopped on the roof, looking out over the sprawling, broken city. The lights of the Royale glittered in the distance. He saw the allocates huddled over a meager firefall far beyond. He saw the allocates huddled around a meager fire far, far below. He saw Bruce, Batman, lost in his self-inflicted torment. He saw himself, a killer, a son, a cooling body after an explosion. And then he saw the other ghost, a street kid who had gotten himself out of the hole and had found and lowered down a rope for others to climb out. A myth, a ghost, a killer, a protector. Jason didn't know how to feel about that. He knew that the rigid line Bruce had drawn in the sand, had long since blurred. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't a bad thing. Not entirely.